wow, when I landed, I thought I'd landed on a different planet. As you know, Japan has experienced a massive tourism explosion.
Some people wonder, are they quietly judging me?
You can't have a tattoo. That's not allowed.
The drop in the yen is what's made it the easiest for people to go to, because that's when all the travel bros started going there. It's like, oh, look, it's so cheap to go there now. Hey there, fellow travelers. Mark here with the Honest Travel Podcast. And this week, or this month, I should say, we have a very special guest where we focus on Japan, and we have Carmen Roberts from the BBC Travel Show, which is a fantastic presenter. You've probably seen her a few times over the years. She's won numerous awards for her reporting on travel. And what's fantastic about this, we're talking about Japan. She has lived there for a number of years and brings her passion for Japan to help us learn more about it. But before we get to Carmen and all of her awesome knowledge about Japan, I want to say hello to my buddy Shebs. Shebs, welcome back, buddy.
Hello, great to be back. Mark, always good to see you. And also, it's not too cold where you are at the moment because it was snowing last time.
Yeah, last time we had about 35 centimeters of snow, and it was, let's see, about minus, it was one of those temperatures where it gets like almost the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius. The wind chill was like minus 35.
Well, soon spring's going to be here, of course, and then the summer.
Well, here we have what we call the fall spring, where you get like this 2 weeks of like nice weather, and then we get snow again. So I'm fully prepared to freeze my behind off in a couple of weeks. But no one is here to listen to me talk about my behind. We have a fantastic guest here today, Carmen Roberts. Welcome to the Honest Travel Podcast. We love having you here. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us your story about Japan. Like, what made you fall in love with Japan? Maybe give a little bit of your background too, so people will understand that you're not just somebody that went to Japan on a vacation like me a couple times to enjoy it, but someone that truly loves Japan and knows a lot about it.
Yeah, so I'm a presenter on a travel show on the BBC, and I first went to Japan back in 2005, I think. It was so long ago. And back then it was like, wow, when I landed, I thought I'd landed on a different planet. You go to many places across Asia, and they're quite similar, aren't they? You could say Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, they're all quite similar, even China. But landing in Japan just blew my mind, really. It was just so different. And I'd been back several times since 2005 to film, again with the BBC, but then in 2014 we moved there for my husband's
awesome.
So we landed up living there for 8 years.
Obviously, there must have been something that made you fall in love with Japan, that you wanted to stay there. Like, what was that thing that really like popped for you? Like, this is the place we want to be.
You know, it's really the culture, it's the people. They're so gentle, and their way of life, the way that they conduct themselves. You know, if you've been to Japan, you'll realize that there's no rubbish bins around. So that is the culture. You pick up your rubbish. You've seen on a lot of the Olympics when Japan had the 2020 or was 2021 Olympics. Yeah, you saw the Japanese spectators. They would pick up their rubbish. They would have such pride in their country. And that first trip that I went to Japan in 2005, we caught the limousine bus from Narita Airport into Tokyo. And interestingly, this is a very good tip, that is one of the most cost-effective ways to get from Narita Airport into central Tokyo. It's called a limousine bus. But anyway, from this bus window, I looked out, and as the bus was pulling away from the airport, there was a whole host of workers from the bus company, all wearing white gloves, that bowed to the bus as it departed.
That is pretty amazing. I know when we left the airport, the first time we went to Japan, I was with my family, and we had their 12-hour flight plus all the other connections and stuff. We get there. I just remember getting in the car, and they're driving, complete silence in the car, but like it was almost like complete silence in the streets. And I'm driving around. I'm like, right now, if I looked at a video of that, I would think it was AI, because like the streets were so clean, everything was so organized. I'm like, wow, we could just eat off the side of the highway. Like, it was just, you're right. It's a completely different experience. I know I felt jealous of, Japan. I'm like, wow, why can't our roads be this clean? Why can't our stuff look this nice? Like, why can't we keep our things together? I mean, that is really cool.
I had a choice of going to Japan back in 23, but I was in Korea and I was asked to go for 5 days, and I kept thinking 5 days wasn't enough. It deserved a lot more than 5 days, so I thought I'll go back another time. But as a first-time visitor, Carmen, is it an intimidating place, and do you need to speak the language? Because a lot of places in Asia, I know, you really need to speak the language. So I've been to China, I've been to Korea. A lot of the time, English isn't great. So what's it like going there as a first-time visitor to Japan? And do you have to speak the language?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Shebs. And I think, yes, you're right. It is quite intimidating. And I do get a lot of questions from people who've never been to Japan before because of that language barrier. You know, that really is an obstacle. Not so much in Tokyo anymore. Tokyo has changed so much, and it's really catered for the international tourists now. A lot of the signage, particularly in all the train stations, there's a lot of English signage. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank goodness.
I know that was the first time that there was some, but it was limited, but it was enough to get around. It was kind of like we would kind of figure it out, and then it was great because there'd always be some elderly person would come up and say, "Can I help you?" And they would like want to practice their English for a little bit, and then like, okay, then that's the exit you want. Thank you for letting me practice. And they'd walk away, and you like go on your way. But literally every time we looked at a little lost, someone would come up and be like, "Hey, can I practice my English?" Sure. And then like give us the directions and on our way. That intimidating factor of, when it's not letters you recognize, not something, and it's so different. Like, if you speak English, you can go to Germany, make out a few things. You speak a little
Yeah.
Spanish, you can figure out the French. You go to Japan, people really do get extremely intimidated. And that's where I've seen, you're right, Japan is really, like, it sounds weird saying leveled up, but they're in terms of helping out international travelers with that kind of de facto, English places. But someone's going for their first time or their second time, or what is that one thing you would say, hey, look, make sure you do this to really truly enjoy the Japanese culture, your trip to Japan? Like, what are some of your kind of tips you give people?
Going back to the language, I think if you learn a few key phrases like hello and thank you, arigato gozaimasu, learn about the bowing, that's always quite appreciated. Learn just a few little etiquette things. So I do think that in Tokyo, and also Google Translate is very, very helpful these days, and in restaurants with menus and things like that. But once you get outside of Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, if you're going into the countryside, for instance, that's when the language barrier could be a real problem. But as you say, there's so many people who are willing to help. If they see you're struggling, they'll be like, oh, just wait here, I'll find someone who speaks English, and they'll come back.
We had that because we were with our kids, and we're trying to figure out what to eat. And the lady's like, hold on, people are willing to help you and talk to you when you're there. I think some people get really intimidated by the quiet that's there. So would you like to talk about like the quietness of the public transportation? Like, I think that's one thing people don't get, because in the US, there's always somebody blaring their like music on their phone or something like that.
That's so true. And I think that's why now there's a bit of a friction with the cultures in Japan, because as you know, Japan has experienced a massive tourism explosion because of the weak yen. It's now affordable, and it's more easily accessible to people to go there with this huge influx of tourists, and maybe they don't know some of the cultures, which is not entirely not their fault, but it's not in our nature to talk quietly or not talk at all on public transport. That's just not in our DNA, is it?
What are some other things that tourists wouldn't think of? Like, you didn't realize that it's not like insulting people or no, it's just things that don't like maybe rub people the wrong way. Like the talking on the metro, or, I know when I was there, it was like, because in the US, nobody smokes anymore. At least they don't smoke cigarettes anymore. But like everywhere we went in Tokyo and Kyoto, there was like signs on the ground everywhere, don't walk and smoke. Like, they were very adamant about that. Are there things like that tourists that maybe not be thinking about, like the vapors or like food or anything like that when they're going around? Anything you'd recommend people to not do?
Walking and eating is also frowned upon. The eating culture in Japan is very big. You sit down for your meal. You don't have a takeaway and you walk on the street with your food. That's frowned upon. But I guess tourists, that is more often the norm these days. But that's one of the things. One tiny quirk that a lot of Western tourists might not realize is the tattoos. If you are going to an onsen, which is the baths, the natural springs, you can't have a tattoo. That's not allowed unless you've got a private onsen. Even some water parks and swimming pools in hotels won't allow people with tattoos. So if you know this in advance, and if your tattoo is small, you could put a plaster on it, or you could cover it up with a t-shirt. but you might be in trouble if you've got like a whole sleeve.
Why is that, Carmen? Why is tattoo so frowned upon?
Traditionally, it's associated with the Yakuza, which is the Japanese mafia. So that's why it's frowned upon. I think particularly hotels these days are getting a bit more lenient in that with their swimming pool etiquette, but you really do have to check. So some of the larger Western hotel brands will allow people with tattoos in their swimming pools, but this is something that you should really, really check with your establishment before you go.
In public, then, are you allowed to walk around and you can't show your tattoos at all and walking around either?
Just swimming pools and onsens and
Okay.
even water parks. Like there was one of those, famous water parks where you go down the slides and everything. And my friend had a tattoo on her ankle, and it was like, no,
Oh.
which was really surprising. And of course, she was shocked. It was a tiny tattoo. It was inoffensive.
Well, I guess it's good I never got those tattoos back in the day.
One of the things I want to know, because I haven't quite been, and you've lived there. You lived there for a good number of years. And when they're going to Japan, what exactly would they be expecting in terms of getting out of there? Obviously, Tokyo, everyone wants to go to. You want to go to the crossing, but what else can people expect? That the rail service, the bullet train, is fast, so you can go from place to place. What are the do's and the don'ts, would you say, people need to know about before they go?
The most well-worn path is Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, and this is just it's the easiest route, obviously, because this is where all the infrastructure is set up. This is where the tours are. It's just set up for tourists. For me, I love getting off the beaten path, and I've done a lot of Japan quite extensively. I've been down to Hiroshima, which was great, again, but that's quite a long way. If you look on the map, it's about a 6-hour Shinkansen bullet train ride. But it's well worth it. Particularly, I covered the Hiroshima anniversary, the bomb anniversary. So that was quite interesting. But it's great to get out of the tourist zones. But when you do, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. Things become a bit more expensive, which you can see why people don't often veer from that path. That's how the infrastructure is set up. But it really is worth it if you can go to some of the lesser known destinations. It just requires a bit more planning and just knowing and a bit more research.
What can you do to make it more comfortable for yourself?
Yeah, I think just good planning, really. So you need to know, perhaps book a guide in advance. One of my better tips is if you are going to a lesser known destination, for instance, get in touch with the hotel before you go. Ask their concierge for some tips and advice. Can you put me in touch with a local guide? Look for a local guide online. A lot of the Japanese guides, often they'll say, oh, there's no guides available because they need to be a Japanese government registered guide. But often you might have seen on social media, you can hire a granddad for the day or to show you around. So, there are ways around it that could be quite fun and make it a bit more accessible. But it just requires a bit more planning and a bit more research, but well worth it.
I've followed you for a while. I know you love skiing. And I know when people think of Japan, they only think like, oh, neon lights or temples. But could you talk a little bit about skiing in Japan? Because though I only break bones when I ski, I would love to hear from someone who loves skiing. Like, what are some advice you have for people that like don't even realize that Japan could be a great place to go skiing?
Japan's, of course, famous for its powder, J-Pow or Japao. That is really what put Japan on the ski map. It's to do with the Siberian winds and its geographical location with the snow that is more light and fluffy, if that's possible. So that's why Japan is famous. And of course, Niseko, which is in the very top in Hokkaido, is the most famous resort in Japan for skiing. It's a flight away from Tokyo. And also it's quite expensive. And also there's Hakuba on the main island. Again, that is a good 4 hours from Tokyo. So that's another really popular resort, popular with Australians, go there to ski. And when we lived in Japan, we skied at one of the lesser known resorts that is tiny, but it's close to Tokyo. So, for instance, you could be there from Tokyo Station to the resort in 70 minutes on a bullet train.
That's
It was
better than
brilliant.
most people's commute to work here.
Exactly. So,
That's great.
but this resort was tiny and it's not very well known.
Okay.
It's certainly not not like Colorado or Vail or
Right.
anything like that, or even Niseko. It's
Yeah.
very rustic, but it was skiing. It was great.
You said it's not a well-known resort, but do you remember the name of it?
Yeah, of course, of course. So there's a lot of little resorts near Tokyo. So the ones within striking distance, there's Gala Yuzawa, which is actually the resort that has a train station in it. So the train station stops at this resort, and you literally get out, go up the elevator, and there you can rent your skis and get out on the slopes. So that is really popular with tourists because that is definitely doable in a day. The resort that we had an apartment at was just a bit down the road from there. So it was a 5-minute taxi ride. So that was called Ishiuchi, and that was brilliant as well. But they're tiny resorts, they're great fun, good for my kids who learned to ski there. I learned to ski there actually. So yeah, but that's the thing about Japan. There's so many tiny resorts like this dotted around the country.
The J-Pow and stuff, like I've seen that, and I'm like, maybe I wouldn't hurt myself if I fell in that. So I was like watching your thing. I'm like, I gotta ask her. I gotta ask her about that. So thank you. Now let's transition over because I like to maintain my manly figure, and to do that I need sustenance. So let's talk about some of the food thing, some of the food mistakes, restaurant kind of tips you might have for tourists that are going to Japan. Because, like, for example, like when do you pay, or how do you get your seat? Like, what advice would you have for people when they're going out to eat?
Definitely a good question. It's common in Europe to sing out like this for the bill, wave your hands around and shout out across the restaurant. Big no. Often there's buttons on the table where you can press for your waiter to come, so you don't need to be waving your arms and shouting across the restaurant. That's one thing. There's a lot of chopstick etiquette. You don't use the ends of the chopsticks where you eat to handle other people's food. You'd have to turn it round. Tipping, there's no tipping usually in Japan. And then a funny thing that I would notice, service. Service is everything in Japan. And for instance, when we would go to a restaurant and you'd see this restaurant was half empty, and you'd say, I need a table for 4, and they'd be like, oh, we're fully booked. Like, there's 3 or 4 tables empty, and they'll say, oh, that's booked it in 1 hour's time. In Europe, in America, any wait staff, right, you can sit down, you've got an hour, and then you can get out, right, to turn up the table. But in Japan, they wouldn't think to do that because it's all about the experience for you. They don't want to rush you. They don't want to be rushed with their service for you. It's such a service orientated culture.
Obviously, I haven't quite been to Japan, but when I was in Korea, when it came to the food itself, when you ask for something to substitute, like to say an ingredient or a recipe or something specific, or like if I went for a coffee, I said, oh, can I have oat milk? Instead, they said, no, it's not on the menu, so you can't have it. Is it the same in Japan as well?
Yeah, I think in Tokyo, it's becoming a bit more acceptable, but definitely they don't like to deviate. It's also difficult for vegetarians as well because a lot of the broths are made with even fish broth. Do you know what I mean? So it is quite difficult. And I think that vegetarian concept has not filtered all the way down. And, you get a lot of Japanese restaurants that just do one dish, or they do like a selection of 3 dishes, and then that's it.
Dietary requirements, if you got like a dairy or gluten issue, they're not willing to sort of say, right, okay, we'll substitute whatever for you. So is that, so they just don't do it at all?
Well, in Tokyo, they're far more accommodating. But once you get out into the countryside or different smaller cities, then I would have, if you have a severe allergy, for instance, a nut allergy, I would get your hotel concierge or get Google Translate to have it written down on a piece of paper so you can show the wait staff.
We saw that they were very accommodating. My wife has a thing, and so they're like, no, you don't eat this. So they were like, if you can't have this, then we recommend you have these dishes because those are cooked differently. And they
Yeah.
were that was in Kyoto. I mean, smaller towns I don't know, but like for us, that was one of those things. It was like, ah, cool, but that is really helpful information to know, especially for people that do have the allergies that you don't really think about because you don't know what dishes are there. Because when you're eating food from your home country, you know what goes into stuff. But if you're not sure what goes in Japanese, in the cuisine, I mean, we take students abroad, and a student found out she had a major allergy and 3 o'clock in the morning, we're like trying to we got to get the hospital kind of stuff. So that is very good to
Yeah.
know.
And
So
then you've got a whole new set of problems if you're trying to go to the hospital at 3 in the morning.
yeah, oh yeah, I feel like that might have happened when your kid. So we've had like falling downstairs. Had like one of our kid has a huge scar here because he flew down a fire stairs, not in Japan, in other places. Another one got his hand smashed in China. Like we've had some times like finding healthcare at strange hours is a very interesting time. I mean, this is kind of off topic, but like if you get in trouble in Japan, like the people are helpful, but like, is there anything you'd recommend? Like, hey, like I always tell people, get your travel insurance, their health insurance when you go there. Have you ever had to deal with the doctors or anything like that when you were in Japan? Like, how were they?
Yes, I gave birth to my twin boys in Japan.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so Japanese hospitals are definitely different from what I was used to. Yeah, it does help if you are going to hospital. I would highly recommend you bring someone to help you translate, or make sure your phone's updated with Google Translate.
Our youngest son was born in Portugal when we were living there, and my wife ended up in bed rest for 4 months. Had to stay in a Portuguese hospital for a month, and I mean, there is a different experience in which you're back home. And you two should have a good chat about having your kids abroad because it's a different experience than back home when mom's coming to visit. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Here in the U.S., ramen shops are popping up all over. And whereas before it was a dish in a Japanese restaurant, now we're seeing like just ramen shops on their own. And I remember when I was in Japan, you'd see the line. You're like, that's the shop we got to go to. Like, how do you know? Because there's literally 200 people waiting outside. It's going to be good. Like, could you tell people just like what about the ramen restaurants, like, so people understand, like, it's not the square that you throw in hot water when you're in college because it's 50 cents. Like, it's so much more than like, I try to explain, like, no, it's a delicacy. It's fantastic. But yes, it has those noodles, but it's so much more. And in the US, I throw out like the ramen packets in class as like freebies because they're literally like 25 cents a pack. And so everyone thinks of it, ramen is like this cheap, like you only eat that when you got nothing, you're a student kind of thing. Like, please inform people of the tastiness of the ramen shop.
Oh my goodness, there's so many different varieties. It's all about the broth, it's the beef, it's the noodles. It's crazy. You could talk for days about this. And what's amazing in Tokyo is there's Michelin star ramen shops, and they would seem so unassuming, but you'll know it by the line, won't you? It's fantastic, the level of food that you can have in Tokyo. And you might, in some of these shops, you'll order from a vending machine. You'll get a ticket and you'll give it to the chef, and it'll be made right there for you. And these shops are tiny, and that's why they've got the line, because they're so small inside, but they've got the high turnover. It is amazing. In Japan, I think it's Table Log. There's an app that you can go on, and that's the one that is quite popular amongst the Japanese. So you don't look at the usual Google ratings, but this is the app that a lot of the Japanese use to book and to see which is the best rated restaurants.
Nice.
And the Japanese are very discerning. So I think if you get 3 or 4 stars, it's pretty good.
And that's an important thing to know because, like, in the US, if anybody's below a 4, that means they're garbage. Because in the US, everyone's super nice, it just gives a 5, even if it wasn't that great. And so if it's like below 4, you're like, oh man, they must have had like rats in the kitchen or something. Like it takes a lot to get below a 4. So that's fantastic. Some other things about Japan, like the quietness kind of things, like some people wonder, are they quietly judging me? Is it like the old ladies, like you're in this, like you go to you go to church and those old ladies in the corner that are like, I don't know about that outfit. Like, are the people like judging you all the time? Or is it just like, is that our perception from the West, thinking like when people are quiet and kind of staring at you, they're judging you? Whereas no, they're just staring at you because they just stare at you?
I think the Japanese are quite curious. And for a long time, they have wanted international tourists because it was so expensive. And I know living in Japan over that time period from
Yeah.
the 8 years, I saw the change and the increase in tourism. And now there's a lot of tourists now with the weakened yen, and they've done a lot to promote tourism internationally. So I think there is a genuine curiosity. There's just a lot of tourists, and I've seen that when I went back recently at the end of last year. You know, there's almost a friction in just etiquette. You know, some of the tourists are not well behaved. So, for instance, the Kyoto Cherry Blossom Festival, they've had to cancel this year because there
I
was
saw
so
that in the news.
rubbish from tourists, and Kyoto is a small place, right? So I don't think it was coping with the influx of tourists and the amount of footfall, as well as the litter that was being left behind. So I think it was a shame what they've had to do. And then also there was that incident. Do you remember there was a famous convenience store which had Mount Fuji in the background, and then the exact photo for Instagram. And so they erected a black screen.
I love that. I love that they did that. It's like in Hallstatt in Austria, like wherever the tourists would go to get their one picture, they put up a big wooden wall. Like, nah, go enjoy the city and do something. We're not here for just your Instagram pic. I think that's fantastic. I would just go for the convenience store that was there, because I love the convenience stores where they're like, people don't understand. You go to Japan, their convenience stores are next level. Like if people go 7-Eleven, no. Yeah, yes, it's 7-Eleven, but no, like you have better food at the convenience stores in Japan than you do at your local grocery store in the US. It's just unbelievable. The quality you get, you just feel like things are better prepared, cleaner, cooked, like healthier kind of stuff. It's just like this wonderful thing. But we'll talk about that later when Shebs and I talk about my time in Japan, because we do not want to keep Carmen and her busy day. Shebs, you want to do the last question?
Let's just say if you went to Tokyo, if you had a couple of weeks and you were going to do your full repertoire of going out, eating, sightseeing, attractions, how much would you be looking at in terms of cost-wise?
Gosh, it really depends on when you go. Obviously, the cherry blossom season is really peak time to go. And I think, but as you said, Mark, there's so many ways that you can eat cheaply in Japan, particularly in Tokyo. So for my top tip, if you're going cherry blossoms, I would just get a picnic. You can go to the yen store, which is the 100 yen store. Everything in there is 100 yen.
Oh, yeah. I love that place.
And
I totally forgot about that. Thank you for that memory to come back.
Yeah. You could buy a picnic mat, get your onigiri, which is the little rice roll from the 7-Eleven, and then go and sit in the park underneath the cherry blossom trees and grab a couple of cans of Japanese beer, and that would be an amazing meal. Also, my top tip is lunch. Lunch is the better where meals are more affordable. So you could go to a really top-notch restaurant for lunch, and it would have a set menu that could cost you $10 at lunch, and you'd go back in the evening and it would be 3 times the price. So so that's my tip. If you want to splurge, do it at lunch. Go to the nice restaurant at lunch, and then have a more simple meal, maybe one of the ramen shops with the machines for the evening. So that's another thing. Hotels are quite expensive in Japan. So Tokyo, of course, is a must. And I think a lot of people want to go to Kyoto as well. Osaka is definitely Kyoto's little cousin, but there's some other places that are really off the beaten path that are quite really worthwhile, like Wakayama. I did a traditional log raft in Wakayama, and that was amazing. But that was a good 3-hour drive from Osaka. Kobe, which is known as Kyoto on the Sea, that's also another amazing destination. There's Art Island, Yayoi Kusuma, the woman that does the dots on the pumpkin. There's a whole art island that Naoshima that I didn't get to go to before I left.
Yet. You haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
exactly. So there's lots of different places that are off the tourist path that are well worth a day trip or even a couple of days, but it requires a bit more planning.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen. Like you have been a wealth of knowledge of Japan, and I want to say thank you for entertaining me many times on the BBC Travel Show over the years. I do remember seeing some of your things back in the day because I used to live in when I lived in Germany and Lithuania. Like that was one of the English channels I had. I'm like, hey, I know her, and so like hearing your voice, like and seeing you in person, it's been an honor to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much. Where can people find you so they can see more?
Sure, I'm on Instagram, Carmen Roberts _travels. That's, I guess, the main platform. I also have a blog. So, yes.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be links to Carmen's social media on her website down below. So you can check it out there. And so you can enjoy her fantastic take on travel around the world because she has great tips and destination things. Very high quality production stuff when she has. It's like you can tell she's a presenter and she knows how to put things together. So Carmen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Shebs. Thanks for having me.
Carmen, oh my gosh, that was so much good information on Japan. I mean, it brought back so many memories of my family there. And we're actually planning another trip to Japan. My son's girlfriend is a really big fan of Japan and she's never been out of the country and she wants to go for her first trip abroad. We're like, if you're going to go to a first trip abroad, Japan is an incredible first thing. I mean, it's been great.
She gave us more than what we expected. And the information provided, hotels, tips, like just
where to go.
So
those people, if you're looking for those side quests, as the kids like to call them, those places she talked about, she is right on with fantastic destinations that aren't on the Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka like tourist trail. Those are great. But what I love is she's like, yeah, it's kind of far. It's like 4 hours. In the US, 4 hours, I go have lunch with my mom and come back in one day. So I'm like, that's not bad at all. So, but that's the thing is like you have travels because we have so all of you that are watching, thank you because we're all over the world. We have people watching this and listening to this podcast. But I think like when I think back to Japan, one of the things that got me was the bathrooms. The bathrooms in Japan affect us so much. When we built our new house, we put Japanese toilets in the house. And for those of you who don't know, so if you're used to like a normal like sit down toilet, you know, some people think, oh, is it like holes in the ground then? No. They have those sometimes in public spots. But when you go to a Japanese home or a Japanese hotel, their bathrooms warms itself. It will play music so nobody can hear you doing your business because there's not a lot of space. So you have that. I mean, some of them like the water you'll wash your hands with the water on top, and the water you wash your hands with goes into the bowl to be used as the next flush. But what the thing that gets you is like the built-in
bidet.
Yeah, the bidet, but
the bidet.
Sometimes I like to say it's like a little mini power wash that comes in and cleans you off, and it is one of those things. But the thing is, it will come out and spray you, and you make sure you choose the right. You want the bottom, the back, or the front to get cleaned off, and it'll have like perfume on there, but it'll have like a air gun going on you. I mean, this is such an experience. Like I had a video like this is the first because I mean I've never saw them before, I never had them before, and so the first time I was there, I'm like, I'm gonna record my face when the first time this happens, and so I have it. I'm like, oh my! But like my wife fell in love with it, and so like when we built this house, she's like, I want this, and so when we were building, all of the workers were like coming in and looking at it like, what does it do? Like they're you can tell they're like these people are weird, but dude, now in the U.S. actually the Japanese toilets are getting more common. So a lot of people around like one has the built-in bidet. And especially, you know, after COVID, when people couldn't get toilet paper, like, what are we going to do? I'm like, oh.
The hygiene is so immaculate over there. We were talking about, Carmen was also talking about things like the trash. There's no trash. There's nothing. You've said it in your own videos in the past. It's so super clean. But that's within their DNA, isn't it?
Well, in a way it is because there's the respect they have for Japan. But another thing is in 95, there was the attacks in the subway system. And so they kind of eliminated a lot of the garbage bins. And that kind of stuck because like, wait, we don't make messes anyway. So we'll take it with you. So if you're going to be going to Japan, I honestly, if you have your backpack, your day pack going around, I would have another like smaller bag that you could put your garbage in. So you can walk around. Then when you get back to your hotel, you can put it in the recycling. You can get it divided up because you will not find garbage bins.
We spoke about with Carmen was how quiet it is. You know, you keep yourself to what the Japanese do. So you respect, and we use that word respect when you're out there, and don't be don't be too loud anyway, but when you're talking, talk quietly.
There's no like listening to music out loud. There is no talking on the subway. It is, I mean, as packed as it gets. It is quiet. Like everywhere you go. You go to a restaurant, you're not loud and boisterous. You're just, inside voicey kind of things. But that's part of the culture. It is very quiet. Like you will notice on the highway, like literally on the highway, driving around, going to the park, like you're like, man, this is eerily quiet. Like you could say, like if they did horror movies and filmed them in Japan, they'd save so much money because it would always be very quiet.
We want to dissect from what Carmen said, and one of the things obviously we spoke about was food, and I love food. I know you love your food as well. But in terms of the information that she gave us in terms of where to go eat, what time, I didn't know about this actually. Eating at lunch, cheaper than eating out. Obviously, you're going to get your set meals and stuff. Same thing, you could eat. It's 3 times more. Did you experience that when you went?
Yeah, and even when we did the sushi stuff and those things, we did during the day, and it was a lot. It was a lot. Well, here's the thing: we were with kids, and so it's a lot easier to find spots and have that. Then at the evening time, since it was a lot more pricey, like you felt like we need to be a little bit higher class when we go in. Whereas during day, it was like you felt like more like, hey, anybody can enjoy. But we don't want to make this podcast too long, so we want to get into some of the comments from our last podcast where we talked about over tourism.
If anyone's got any thoughts about this episode, what Carmen said, please do leave your comments again, and we'll be able to sort of go through them in the next episode. We'll choose the best ones, but we might have to do, Mark, an episode where we just go through everyone's comments, because we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, which we really appreciate, by the way. It really helps with our algorithm and everything. So first comment, Mark, came from one of our members, Adam Gordon 1977, and it says, this was about our last episode, of course, which was about over tourism. It said, it's nice seeing more people be able to travel. It's nice seeing people from all over the world travel. Over tourism in some places will continue to happen in places everyone wants to visit. I'm glad I visited the Vatican when I visited Italy, but it was so crowded that it was hard to walk and enjoy the artwork and history. Have you been to the Vatican yourself, and do you remember it being overcrowded and not being able to see the artwork?
Every time I've gone to the Vatican, I mean, you always notice it's full. Like, and this is pre-over tourism days. Like, they have always been a very busy place. And for me, like going there, I like whenever I take my students and stuff, I'm like, no, we are going to be the first group. Like we booked the tickets, the private guides, so we're the first one in, just so we have a slight like lead. And some of you can actually get to the Sistine Chapel when it opens early, and they're like, oh, you'll be alone. You're never alone. There's other groups in there, but it's not as packed. Like it's not shoulder to shoulder. It's like, oh, you can kind of like sit there and enjoy it. To avoid those big overtours, you got to get up and be there first person in, because all the people that sleep in, all the people that are like getting their kids ready, they're getting there after lunch. They're getting there at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. You're the first. If there's a museum you really want and you're scared of the over tourism stuff, get the pre-book ticket, get the first one in. That's going to help you kind of get through those things. That's my best advice.
Well, one of the other things that Carmen talked about was, and I asked her the question, do you need to speak the language? Because another one of our comments from Redemption Arc Travels has said many countries, including Japan in recent years, are becoming over-catering to English speakers. Is that the case, Mark?
How they say it, the over-catering English speakers sometimes mean, oh, it's for Americans or Brits or whatever. But here's the thing. English is the de facto tourism language around the world. So if I want my tourists to be happy and I want to have the least issues, I will make sure my people speak English. I'll make sure I have an English menu, because when they come in, even if maybe their Google Translate doesn't do Japanese, it will do English. And it's going to be a lot easier. Like they can call their mom at home. Hey, mom, what does this main word mean? And whatever. It's an English word. They're like, oh, it's this. Okay, thanks. Oh, speck. Oh, bacon. Okay, good. Thanks. Like that's the thing, is there's at least one, because think about it, do you like the menus you have in Europe where there's 900 languages? It becomes like, wait, what's that thing I should actually try? And here they can at least keep it down to like the English one. But the thing is, they're catering to us. Because when I was there the first time, there was not a lot of stuff in English, like now it's gotten a lot better. So you could enjoy it more. And that's what, I mean, that's helped tourists enjoy it. But honestly, the drop in the yen is what's made it the easiest for people to go to, because that's when all the travel bros started going there. It's like, oh, look, it's so cheap to go there now. And I feel like in my videos back, we were there the first time we were filming, like it was expensive. And now it's like, hey, let's go. That's why I'm like, hey, let's take the whole family. Let's go back again. No problem.
Last question from one of our viewers is from SLH356661. Got to make it easier for us to say your name. But over the years, we have changed how we travel internationally. internationally. We used to go to big cities. Now we might start or end there, but we get out of the cities quickly and enjoy the off the beaten track. Now that's the big thing, isn't it, Mark? Going to the off the beaten track. Now Japan itself, Carmen mentioned it, if you can take a bullet train quite quickly, she talked about going to a resort 70 minutes away, do your skiing, which you mentioned, was one of the things you actually talked about was skiing. You've done it and you've come back to the city, haven't you?
No, and I think that's one of the things when people get upset about over tourism and the locals get upset with over tourism, it's the Barcelonas, it's the Pragues, because the tourists just stay there. You get out, it's kind of like if you go like the walk from Charles Bridge to the Old Town Square in Prague is always packed. But literally, if you just walk one block off, it's empty. And the thing is, if you see these places, you go just to a different neighborhood, or you go to like the town right outside the tourist city, you'll see a complete difference. Like I saw this, we were in Greece, 2 years ago, and we had friends that used to run, they've now moved on, but they for years they ran a bunch of apartment rentals in Crete. This is when everyone's going crazy for, oh, I got to go to Mykonos for the sunset and Santorini for the sun rise, and and I got a party here, and I got to go to Athens. But all they would do is go to the Acropolis in Athens, go to Mykonos, and they go to Santorini, and that was it. And we were on Crete, and our friends, they're like, hey, we're actually going to close down a month early this year. I'm like, what are you talking about? Greece has got booming numbers. They're like, no, they're only going to those Instagram spots. And so we were like in Nafplio in Greece, and literally it was like us and a couple other Greek American families that were visiting families there. Otherwise, it was just the locals, because all the tourism, the over tourism was just going to those spots. That's why it's like, hey, if you don't go to the super touristy spots, you're going to be okay. Because like we drove from Poland to Albania, hitting all the main tourist cities along the way, and over tourism was never mentioned once. Like it's not something you have a problem with, because no one's thinking of going to Poland. No one's thinking of going to, Romania. And they should, because Romania is awesome, like these kind of things out there. So that's kind of thing. But we got our things. I would say thank you, everybody who had our comments. Please leave the comments so we can always answer a few every podcast. So comments you leave, we'll answer a few of those on our next podcast. But before we go, we need to talk about some of the news out there when it comes to travel. And one, for my American friends, Real ID is in effect from February 1st, 2026. If you do not have a Real ID, you might have trouble traveling. However, there is a way to get around it. You can pay $45 per 18-year-old and above person to get verified, to be able to go. I think it's called Confirm ID. And the thing is, you should do it online before you go to the airport, because they can use your other form of ID that is not a real ID. Now, if you have a real ID, i.e. you have a driver's license with a star on it, or you have a passport, or your green card kind of stuff, those count, you're fine, you're good. But if it's looking like you have a license that does not have a real ID, or you do not have a real ID, you're going to have to find another way to verify your existence so you can travel. Also, it is only valid for 10 days from the day you travel. So you're going on a 12-day vacation, you're going to have to pay $45 again to get it re-verified. So that can add up. Yeah, so it can add up. So your best bet is to just take the extra information and go to your DMV and get a new ID, or just get a passport card and just take your passport with you, and you can just fly with that. Now, in the UK, I was just there, and ETA system, the electronic travel authorization scheme, is in full force. And from the 25th of February, 2026, if you've not already done this pre-clearance, they are not going to let you in. So if you're not a UK passport holder, you better be registering this beforehand, 72 hours beforehand. Like when I did it, I literally clicked pay, like submit, and then I opened up my Hotmail, because I old school email account, and the authorization was already there. So you'll have that. But there is some news. I think there's a twist to this that I think my best buddy Shebs should talk about.
Yeah, the twist for any Brits is that if you've got a dual nationality, you've got let's just say, for example, an American passport and a British passport, you need to travel on your British passport, because if you think you've come in before on your US passport, they won't allow you in. You have to travel from the US to the UK on your British passport. Because I've got a friend who actually travels only on her Irish passport, and I said, why don't you ever use your British passport to come in? It's like, well, you don't need to, but now from the 25th of February onwards, you have to use your British passport from the airport that you're leaving from coming into the UK. But again, we talked about it in our last show, and then you've had some videos out as well, Mark, that you can get this all on the UK Gov website, and you can only, I think it's like 16 something pound, rather than paying someone, a third party, hundreds of pounds or $100 or whatever it is.
Yeah, we have fans that paid $91 for a 16-pound thing. And the thing is, if you look online, Google does not have the gov.uk/ETA as number one, because these other companies are paying to have those higher things. So you think, oh, that's the place to go. Go to the gov.uk/ETA site to get it there. Other news. World's top destination, Bali, took the #1 spot on TripAdvisor's Traveler's Choice Best of Best Awards.
Europe is Madrid, so it was voted by the European Best Destination that Madrid is a place to go. I've been to Madrid, it's very good.
Especially since when people talk about the anti-tourism stuff in Spain, they always talk about Barcelona, not Madrid. So maybe you'll feel a little bit more welcome, though I felt welcome in Barcelona every time I've gone there. So, but that's one there. Now, going over to the beach, the top beach was named Isla Pasión in Cozumel, Mexico, was named the best beach in 2026 for the TripAdvisor award. Now, I've been to the Riviera Maya, and the beaches there can be beautiful. However, sometimes the seaweed can wash up and make it not as beautiful. So I'm going to guess the Isla Pasión, the Passion Island, maybe doesn't have that issue as often, but beaches down there really are great. So other news, AirAsia X made a massive move by naming Bahrain as its strategic hub for Europe, facilitating new low-cost routes between Kuala Lumpur and London via the Middle East. That's kind of cool. That opens up more competition, which means better prices for us. You know, and that's one of those things. And for my American friends, you might think, well, this doesn't really matter to me, because if I'm going from the US, we go the other direction. But sometimes you have to realize that sometimes it's like easier on your body to go to Europe for a bit and then go over. And I'll let you go on to the last one, my friend, about Thai Airways.
Yes, Thai Airways began deploying a new Airbus this month, which reduces, and we talked about it actually in our last episode as well, about the overtourism and also sustainability. So it's got a new emission which will by 20% help the airline rebuild its regional network. So that's a really good thing actually. So I think more and more airlines probably go down this route, and obviously the more and more we travel now, we have to think about the sustainable aspect of it.
Yeah, it's not just the people that are like, it's too loud at the airport by where I live. No, there's other impacts as well that are there. So we're wrapping up this month's podcast, the Honest Travel Podcast by Wolters World. My buddy Shebs, thank you, my friend, for joining up. Remind the people where they can find you, my friend.
Yes, for me, everyone can find me just Shebs the Wanderer, you can find me. But for this podcast, yes, Wolters World, leave a comment, subscribe, make sure you share with your friends, family, because the more it's shared, the more we get visible to others as well. And why wouldn't you want to watch us? Two lovely people, hey? We bring on amazing guests like Carmen Roberts, who was amazing to have on. I mean, we were just saying after our recording, we have to pinch ourselves, because I've been watching her for 20 years. You've been watching her for about the same time, haven't you? It's crazy.
Because I know when you're like, hey, Carmen Roberts, maybe we could get to have her on the podcast. I'm like, wait, I know that. And then I'm like, oh my God, I know her. Like this was kind of a nice little like fanboy moment there for me. So, and you could see her love of Japan and her love of skiing and all this stuff. Like her advice was like awesome, and her like passion for Japan was great. So thank you, Carmen, for coming on. And thank you everybody for watching. Until next month, our next topic, we're going to have to wait and see. We'll see you next month.